In 1994, Fist of Legend shook all of Asia with its steel-hard punches and unforgettable cold-blooded stares. But 29 years later, those familiar faces have changed so much that you may barely recognize them. Some vanished after a single defining role, some carried lifelong tragedy, and others now live lives no different from billionaires. So what really happened to the cast after the cameras stopped rolling? Let's take a look at how they appear in 2025 and honor the legacies they left behind. Jet Li as Chen Zhen. Jet Li was born on April 26, 1963, in Beijing, China. He was 31 years old when he played Chen Zhen, the student burdened by the pain of losing his master and the humiliation of wounded national pride, in Fist of Legend, 1994. Chen Zhen is quiet, decisive, and cold, like a man damaged too deeply to express emotion. It was not merely a martial arts role, but a reflection of a fractured period in Jet Li's own life. In his personal life, Jet Li entered his first marriage with Huang Qiuyan, his teammate from the Beijing Wushu team and on-screen partner, when they were both very young. They had 2 daughters, but the marriage was quickly crushed by career pressure and growing emotional distance. Jet Li threw himself into film work, moving from Hong Kong to the international stage, while family life slowly became something he was almost never present for. Their divorce in 1990 left him with the bitter sense of failure of a man unable to hold his family together. In 1999, Jet Li remarried actress Nina Lee Chi, a relationship that began with passion but was sustained through endurance. They had 2 daughters, and on the surface appeared to be a stable family, but internally it was marked by constant tension from relentless work schedules and his increasingly fragile health. As Jet Li conquered Hollywood with Lethal Weapon 4 and later Hero, he openly admitted to feeling guilt for rarely being home, leaving Nina to shoulder family responsibilities alone. Just as his family life reached its most fragile point, Jet Li's body began to rebel. Injuries accumulated from his years as a wushu athlete, combined with decades of action filmmaking, led to a diagnosis of hyperthyroidism. The illness caused chronic fatigue, visible physical changes, and emotional decline, while social media spread rumors that he was close to death. After brushing against mortality, Jet Li no longer saw the world the same way. Films, money, and fame all shrank in importance. By 2025, Jet Li is 62 years old, largely withdrawn from acting, choosing instead to focus on the one foundation and his spiritual life. With an estimated net worth of around $250 million, he now lives peacefully with his family, having fully paid the price of being a legend. Siu-ho as Siu-ho. Siu-ho was born on January 26, 1963, in Hong Kong. He was 31 years old when he played Siu-ho, a complex rival hardened by circumstance and shaped by the brutality of his era, in Fist of Legend, 1994. Siu-ho is not merely a villain, but a man trapped between honor, violence, and fatal choices. The role mirrored Siu-ho's own turbulent path in life. From a young age, Chin's life was forged in steel. He began martial arts training at the age of 10 under brutal conditions that left his body repeatedly injured. When he rose to fame with Mr. Vampire, 1985, success arrived quickly, but also placed heavy pressure on him to maintain the image of an action star within a ruthless industry. In later years, as Hong Kong cinema declined, leading roles gradually disappeared, forcing Chin to take on supporting parts and stunt work. That decline was not merely a professional fall, but a quiet, emotional wound for a man who had once stood at the peak. Siu-ho's marital life also failed to provide stability. His divorce from his first wife, Sharon Kwok Sao-wan, left lasting fractures within the family. But the greatest tragedy struck in 2015, when his eldest son died in an accident. The loss crushed his spirit, plunging Chin into severe depression and causing him to nearly disappear from public view. During this time, chronic joint pain from old martial arts injuries resurfaced, compounding his physical and emotional collapse. Chin later attempted to rise again, reappearing in dark, somber works such as Rigor Mortis and Vampire Cleanup Department, where he was no longer a hero but a man whose life scars were etched onto his face. Each role became less about performance and more about releasing grief that could not be put into words. Cinema became the only way he could continue breathing after an irreparable family shock. By 2025, Siu-ho is 62 years old, appearing occasionally on screen. With an estimated net worth of around $5 million, he is not wealthy compared to his contemporaries, but he has paid an extraordinarily high price for every dollar he earned. After the death of his son and years of depression, Siu-ho exists quietly, much like Ho Ting-en himself. Ada Choi as Rose. Ada Choi was born on September 17, 1973, in Hong Kong. At the age of 21, she played Rose, a gentle woman constantly caught between violence, loss, and choices that were never truly her own, in Fist of Legend, 1994. Rose holds no power, yet it is precisely her fragility that makes the story more painful. Behind the lights, Ada's private life soon fell into a spiral of relentless tension. Her mother struggled with a severe gambling addiction, leaving behind massive debts that Ada was forced to shoulder for the entire family. The money she earned from acting was not for enjoyment, but for paying off debts day after day. The prolonged pressure pushed her into depression, and there were moments when she contemplated ending everything. During that period, although she continued to appear regularly on screen in gentle, kind roles, Ada lived in a state of mental exhaustion, holding on to a smile on set, only to collapse once she returned home. Marriage was meant to be a refuge, but instead opened another chapter of hardship. When Ada married Zhang Jin in 2008, she was the more famous partner and the higher earner, becoming the family's financial backbone in the early years. Financial stress, public scrutiny, and the imbalance in fame repeatedly strained the relationship. At the same time, Ada's journey into motherhood was filled with tears, miscarriages, pregnancy complications, and hospital stays haunted by the fear of losing her child. Ada's body eventually began to respond after years of endurance. Prolonged stress left visible marks on both her mental and physical health, forcing her to step away from work multiple times. Although her career later reached recognized peaks, including acclaimed roles such as The Dance of Passion, Ada has admitted that late success could not erase the years spent living in fear. Fear of debt, of family collapse, and of loneliness even after marriage. By 2025, Ada Choi is 52 years old, choosing family as her highest priority, appearing selectively on television rather than chasing the spotlight. With an estimated net worth of around $15 million, she is no longer materially bound by her past. But emotional wounds are not so easily healed. Rose in Fist of Legend once stood silently amid the tragedy of others, while in real life, Ada Choi lived fully within her own tragedy. Billy Chow as General Fujita. Billy Chow was born on August 24, 1958, in Canada. At the age of 36, he played General Fujita, the brutal commander embodying violence and rigid ideology, in Fist of Legend, 1994. On screen, Fujita is a Cold War machine. Off-screen, Billy Chow stepped onto set with a body already marked by countless brutal bouts. Before cinema came an unforgiving fighting career. Billy Chow was a WKA super welterweight world champion in the mid-1980s, but the price of glory was cumulative injury, persistent pain in his joints, back, and wrists. When he transitioned into film, he carried a fighter's steel discipline and the constant fear that his body could break at any moment. His years appearing in high-risk and other action films coincided with a daily negotiation with pain in every training session. His private life was also under strain. The rhythm of life as a fighter-actor forced Billy Chow to spend long periods away from family, trading presents for training schedules, filming demands, and constant travel. When Hong Kong cinema entered a period of decline, unstable income brought financial pressure, pushing him toward another choice to protect his household, gradually stepping away from the spotlight and returning to the gym. Opening Billy's gym was not a retreat. It was salvation. There, he transformed pain into knowledge, training a new generation of fighters while learning to slow down to preserve his own health. Old injuries still remind him every morning, but teaching and passing on his craft helped him regain balance. By 2025, Billy Chow is 67 years old, still alive and working as a businessman and coach. With an estimated net worth of around $3 million, he is not wealthy by glamorous standards, but rich in endurance. General Fujita once struck with an iron fist. In real life, Billy Chow chose to protect family and health with disciplined restraint. Paul Chun as Uncle No. Paul Chun was born on May 17, 1945 in Shanghai, China. In Fist of Legend, 1994, he was 49 years old when he played Uncle No, a calm, observant elder who witnesses the tragedy of the younger generation with seasoned eyes. The character never needs to throw a punch. His silence alone carries the weight of history. And Paul Chun's real life, too, has been written through similarly heavy years. Born into a renowned artistic family, Paul Chun stepped onto film sets at just 3 years old. But being born into the craft was not a privilege. It was a burden. War forced his family to flee Shanghai for Hong Kong, carrying loss and instability with them. As he grew up, Paul struggled through the difficult transition from child star to adult actor. He was criticized for his performances, constantly compared to his more famous parents and siblings, and lived for years under the pressure of proving he deserved his place. Paul Chun's married life was equally unsettled. His first marriage ended in profound grief when his wife passed away prematurely, leaving a spiritual void that was impossible to fill. During those years, he continued to face the camera and complete his roles, but internally he was a man without direction. Later heavyweight performances, such as C'est la vie, mon chéri, not only earned him awards, but also became a way to pour personal pain into his characters. His body, too, paid the price for more than 7 decades in the profession. Age, relentless schedules, and prolonged psychological pressure gradually eroded his health, forcing him to be more selective and slow his pace. Yet it was precisely this lived experience that made his portrayals of fathers, uncles, and aging men so haunting. By 2025, Paul Chun is 80 years old, still alive and continuing to appear in cinema as a quiet monument. With an estimated net worth of around $10 million, he does not flaunt wealth, but leaves value in the depth of his acting and a rare endurance. Uncle No in Fist of Legend once stood on the margins of history, while in real life, Paul Chun has walked an entire lifetime devoted to art. Yasuaki Kurata as Fumio Funakoshi. Yasuaki Kurata was born on March 20, 1946, in Ibaraki, Japan. At the age of 48, he appeared in Fist of Legend, 1994, as Fumio Funakoshi, a calm, principled, and strict martial arts master. The character does not need to flaunt strength. His authority comes from discipline and endurance, much like the path Kurata himself has walked throughout his life. His move into Hong Kong cinema was a major psychological turning point. From being a television star in Japan, Kurata had to adapt to a new culture, learn Cantonese, and compete in a ruthless environment where age offered no advantage. The pressure to maintain peak form among younger faces pushed his body to its limits. In the years after Fist of Legend, as he continued taking on action roles and Pan-Asian projects, his body began to protest after decades of training in karate, judo, and aikido. Kurata's personal life has remained private, but the loneliness of working far from home was real. packed filming schedules, the responsibility of training students, and managing a stunt team left little personal time. When he returned to the dojo, he faced chronic joint pain and persistent fatigue. Cinema, rather than an escape, became a mirror reflecting gradual, silent wear. To survive, Kurata chose to step behind the scenes. Running Kurata Promotion, teaching and serving as a martial arts consultant, allowed him to stay connected to his craft without destroying his health. From time to time, he returned to the screen with a deeper, more restrained presence, as seen in later projects such as God of War. By 2025, Yasuaki Kurata is 79 years old, remaining selectively active while maintaining dojos in Tokyo, Osaka, and Hong Kong. With an estimated net worth of around $4 million, he does not chase extravagance. Fumio Funakoshi once taught that strength is discipline, and in real life, Kurata has lived by that principle. Shinobu Nakayama as Mitsuko Yamada. Shinobu Nakayama was born on January 18, 1973, in Kogane, Tokyo, Japan. She was 21 years old when she played Mitsuko Yamada, a Japanese woman caught between honor, violence, and the choices of the heart, in Fist of Legend, 1994. Mitsuko is quiet, yet her eyes carry the anguish of love in a time of chaos. It was also the emotional state in which Shinobu entered a fractured chapter of her own life. Behind that fragile image lay an incomplete marital life. Shinobu married in 2000, just as her acting career stalled amid the decline of Japanese cinema. The pressure of being labeled Miho Nakayama's younger sister, combined with fewer work opportunities, quickly strained her family life. The divorce came quietly, leaving behind a sense of disorientation in a woman who had stepped away from the spotlight while losing her emotional anchor. The collapse of her marriage ushered in heavy years. Shinobu withdrew from the idol lifestyle, abandoned singing after a brief period, and shifted fully into acting with roles that demanded greater inner strength. Appearances in Gamera, Guardian of the Universe, and later Gamera 3 brought professional recognition, but prolonged stress led her to choose a more private life, limiting work to protect her mental balance. By 2025, Shinobu Nakayama is 52 years old, still alive but largely inactive, prioritizing her private life. With an estimated net worth of around $2 million, she is not wealthy by idol standards, but it is enough to choose peace. Mitsuko Yamada once stood silently amid the storms of history. In real life, Shinobu has learned how to stand still before the storms of her own life. Cheung-Yan Yuen as Captain Jie. Cheung-Yan Yuen was born in 1957 in Guangzhou, China. In Fist of Legend, 1994, he was 37 years old when he played Captain Jie, a disciplined, cold, yet not heartless officer. Captain Choi represents order amid chaos, and behind that role lies a life shaped by the pressure of a martial arts dynasty. Born into the prestigious Yuen family as the son of Yuen Xiutian and the younger brother of Yuen Wuping, Cheung-Yan Yuen grew up under immense expectations. His marriage was tested by a grueling work schedule and the constant obsession with being worthy of the Yuen name. Years spent struggling between film sets meant that family life was often placed on hold, quietly creating distance in his personal world. Personal stress accumulated just as his body began to pay the price. Decades of work as a stuntman and fight choreographer left him with lingering injuries to his joints and spine. Every choreographed scene was an exchange, and physical pain gradually seeped into daily life. Even so, he remained devoted to the craft, slowly transitioning to work behind the camera, where experience could replace youth. His years working internationally, from Asian productions to Hollywood projects like Charlie's Angels, Full Throttle, brought professional recognition but did not erase the accumulated exhaustion. Family pressure and declining health forced him to learn how to slow down, selecting projects within his limits to avoid further erosion of both his body and relationships. By 2025, Cheung-Yan Yuen is 68 years old, still alive and working selectively as a choreographer. With an estimated net worth of around $3 million, he does not seek display or excess, choosing instead to preserve professional honor. Captain Ji once upheld discipline amid chaos. In real life, Cheung-Yan Yuen maintains discipline with himself. Jackson Liu as Ryuichi Akutagawa. Jackson Liu was born on March 22, 1962, in Taiwan. She was 32 years old when she played Ryuichi Akutagawa, a cold Japanese officer, the embodiment of iron discipline, in Fist of Legend, 1994. Akutagawa speaks little, but every step he takes carries the weight of authority. That same pressure followed Jackson throughout her career. Jackson entered Hong Kong cinema during one of its most ruthless and saturated periods. The early to mid-1990s were dominated by established superstars, while countless capable actors competed for limited space on the margins. She worked steadily, often cast in supporting or functional roles that required precision rather than spotlight. Moving from one action film to another provided a living, but it also came with a lingering anxiety. Major roles consistently went to others. Visibility was fleeting. Recognition was rare. The spotlight would briefly touch her, then shift away just as quickly, leaving behind the quiet fear of being forgotten. That professional tension slowly bled into her personal life. Unpredictable shooting schedules, constant travel, and the pressure to remain available made long-term relationships difficult to maintain. More damaging than the instability was the emotional toll of always being almost there, always close to significance but never quite crossing the threshold. Jackson tried to endure by saying yes, accepting more projects, appearing in films like Police Story 4 and a wide range of commercial action titles. Yet each role subtly reinforced the same reality. Within the rigid star system, there were limits she was unlikely to break through. As the industry evolved and a new generation of faces arrived, Jackson felt the shift unmistakably. Rather than fight a losing battle against time, trends, and relentless competition, she chose a quieter path. She gradually stepped away from the screen, slowing her pace not out of defeat, but self-preservation. It was not a dramatic exit, but a silent withdrawal after years of sustained pressure. Akutagawa had stood firm through discipline and control. In real life, Jackson learned to stand firm through acceptance, recognizing when to let go. By 2025, Jackson Liu is 63 years old. She is still alive, but appears only rarely, having chosen stability over the exhausting pursuit of relevance. With an estimated net worth of around $2 million, she lives comfortably, free from the volatility that once defined her working years. Ryuichi Akutagawa was once a cog in a rigid machine of power and order. Jackson Liu, after a career defined by endurance rather than glory, quietly stepped away from that machine, closing it behind her on her own terms. Man-Bu Lee as Bu. Man-Bu Lee is believed to have been born around 1954 in Hong Kong. He was 40 years old when he played Bu, a figure standing on the margins of a major conflict, appearing briefly yet carrying a very human presence, in Fist of Legend, 1994. Bu is neither hero nor villain, just a small person caught in a vortex of violence. That image closely mirrors Man-Bu Lee's own position in Hong Kong cinema. Man-Bu Lee's career was closely tied to supporting roles and fleeting appearances. He entered the industry during an intensely competitive era, where the spotlight could only accommodate a handful of major names. Although he appeared in Police Story, 1985, an iconic film, that success did not open wider doors. Instead, it became a form of typecasting, always present but rarely remembered by name. The years that followed were defined by persistence mixed with exhaustion. Man Bu Lee continued taking roles in action and triad films, working steadily but with unstable income. Each new project revived the same old fear. Could this be the last one? Competition with younger actors gradually pushed him aside, leaving him with the feeling of being abandoned by changing times, despite never stopping his efforts. As Hong Kong cinema shifted direction, supporting faces like Man Bu Lee nearly vanished from the map. His role in Fist of Legend became one of the last milestones still mentioned, like a quiet farewell to audiences. By 2025, Man Bu Lee is 71 years old, still alive but almost completely inactive in the industry. With an estimated net worth of around $1 million, he lives a simple life away from the spotlight. Bu in Fist of Legend once stood silently amid history, and in real life, Man Bu Lee also stands quietly before the harsh current of cinema. 29 years have passed since Fist of Legend, 1994, and the punches that once shook the screen now echo only in memory. Some still live quietly in ordinary life. Some carry pain that never truly heals, and others have disappeared from the spotlight without anyone noticing. Which actor's fate after 29 years moves you the most? Leave a comment below to share your feelings. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to continue joining us in exploring other haunting then and now stories from classic martial arts cinema.